who is best placed to identify early signs is just absolutely you as a parent, as a caregiver. It's the moms and the dads, because you know your children best. You are the expert on your children. And I really always try to encourage all parents to just trust your instincts, because you know your child, you know the development, you've been there since the first minute, and you are just best placed to identify any signs.
Hello, Kaya and Wanju. Welcome to Kiind Conversations, where we're simplifying the caring journey one conversation at a time. I'm Teresa, Peer Navigation Lead here at Kiind, and your host. As always, we're here to explore the topics that matter most to parents and carers raising children with disability. I'd like to acknowledge that we are recording this podcast on the Whadjuk Noongar Boodja. We pay our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and to elders past and present. We have a very important yet very exciting episode for our listeners today. First, we have Kiind Peer Navigator Sharon back with us on the mic.
Hello.
Hi, Sharon. And now let's welcome our wonderful guest to Kiind Conversations, Marie Rodatz.
Hello.
Hello. Marie works at CliniKids as their clinical lead in occupational therapy. She has over 20 years of experience as an occupational therapist working with children with developmental differences. Marie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Wonderful. So, Marie, I think a great place to start is, listeners would really love to know a little bit more about you.
Sure. I've been an OT for over 20 years, like you said already, and I've been very lucky to have been able to work in several countries around the world. So I started off in Germany, have spent several years in Ireland, and now I'm in Australia. In all of my jobs, I've worked with children and their parents and families, and the children who are developing differently and primarily with autistic children. Now at CliniKids, we are a service provider integrated into a research organization, the Kids Research Institute of Australia. And this puts us in a unique position to deliver innovative and well-researched programs. Professor Andrew Whitehouse is our director, who is a well-known researcher in the field. And we know that it takes a long time for research to be put into clinical practice. So it takes about 10, 15 years generally for research studies that have proven to be effective, to be really implemented into everyday therapies. And that's really our aim at CliniKids, to shorten that time. So when we know research has been done, that an approach is effective, then we want to be able to pass this on to families straight away. So we offer allied health services for children under the age of 9, so really from babies up to 9. And like other providers, we offer occupational therapy, speech pathology, and clinical psychology. So what our clients experience is really excellent all-around support. And they also have the option to be involved in research if they want to. Of course, there is it's not a need to be involved in research if they don't want to. And I think the favorite part about my work is really working with the children and the family. So it's just sharing smiles and giggles with the kids and being part of their life as they grow up and to develop their skills is just an absolute privilege.
I think that's why it's so exciting to have you here, Marie, because your whole professional life has been dedicated to this. So that passion and that knowledge, it's such a privilege to have you here to share that with our listeners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marie. I'm sure our listeners will gain so much valuable information and insights through your expertise and what you're going to be sharing with us today. Yeah. We want to talk our listeners through what to do if they have some concerns around their child's development. It's natural to feel this way if you've noticed signs your child may be developing differently. So Marie is here to answer some of the common questions that parents and carers have around this. Firstly, Marie, what does developing differently mean to you?
That's a really interesting question, and it probably means something different to all of us. So first of all, I would say that probably all children develop individually or in their own pattern. So when I think back to my parent group with my first child, every child met their milestones at different times. There were the kids that were walking at 9 months, and then there were other kids that weren't walking until 15, 16 months. And I think despite my qualifications as an OT, I think it wasn't until then that I actually really understood developmental milestones. So yeah, I know it sounds like a cliche, but it really is so true that every child is unique. Every child has their own strengths and skills, and they will all develop some skills quickly, and other skills will take longer to develop. So that's just what we expect to happen. So what I'm trying to say is that every child will have an area where they develop differently, maybe slower, maybe faster to appear, and this is to be expected. And as a parent, you can notice these differences, but my first advice would be don't be worried or anxious, just notice it.
Yeah, because it's not always clear what typical development looks like for some families, especially if the child is there first.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
particularly. Yeah.
And I think a lot of us, like moms and now dads as well, we just compare ourselves to other parents. We compare our kids to the other kids. And to put that into Bluey episode, I think the Bluey episode, Baby Race, describes this really nicely, where Chili, the mom, is kind of like getting worried because Bluey doesn't walk as quickly as some of the other kids in her mother's or parent group. And it's kind of like all the anxiety and the stress that comes with it for a parent, like, oh, my child isn't doing this yet, what am I doing wrong? And it's just to say you're not doing anything wrong. It's just part of the development, the typical development in children, that some are faster at some things and other kids take a little bit longer to learn something else.
Yeah, and I think that's lovely, and it leads us into the why of doing this podcast as well. We want to make sure that families feel confident in knowing when their young person might need some additional supports. And we also recognise not every child or family experience is going to be the same. So we'll do our best to address a variety of concerns throughout this episode. We will be using neuroaffirming language throughout the podcast, but also acknowledging that the language that a family chooses or a person chooses is up to them as well. But we certainly want to chat in a neuroaffirming language.
Yeah, absolutely. But also recognising that families who are sort of entering the space newly are learning the language from the clinicians that they're coming into contact with initially. So they might be using more clinical terms. That's all right too. They're still finding their way. We're just a bit further down the road. So, we can learn that clinical language and then flip it to use more neuroaffirming. But there's absolutely not a criticism of families new to the space who are still finding their way through that process.
Absolutely. And I think it's a journey for all of us. Even as clinicians, we may still get it wrong. We are still learning. We are learning so much from the neurodivergent community, so our knowledge is just constantly growing as well. So
it changes, right?
Exactly.
So it's evolving for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So remember, if you do have any questions at all, the Kiind team is here to support you. So you can book in a pathway planning session to discuss your individual circumstances with us anytime you need it, and the link will be in our show notes.
From all of us at Kiind, we hope you're enjoying this podcast as much as we enjoy making it. Kiind Conversations is just one of the ways we connect parents and carers to the information you need. Our website also contains fact sheets, workbooks and guides helping you to build capacity to best support your child. Our resources cover many topics, including seeking a diagnosis, NDIS navigation, access to supports, including financial and much, much more. You can access this information anytime, anywhere on our website at kiind, that's with 2is.com.au. Back to the show.
Let's begin by talking about what to look out for in your child's skills and behaviours and when to seek support and take the next steps. Marie, we have some questions for you based on what we hear from families. So first question, who is best placed to identify early signs of developmental difference?
Parenting is a really tough journey, and there are so many people around us who are trying to help us and trying to tell us what to do, what not to do, and what is right or wrong. And despite everyone's best efforts and good intentions, this is sometimes not so helpful. And I think even now, like with social media, this is even getting harder because we are looking for answers and we can get the wrong information easily. So I think in terms of like who is best placed to identify early signs is just absolutely you as a parent, as a caregiver. It's the moms and the dads, because you know your children best. You are the expert on your children. And I really always try to encourage all parents to just trust your instincts, because you know your child, you know the development, you've been there since the first minute, and you are just best placed to identify any signs.
Yeah.
And I think it's just nice also, to remind families that if you're worried, then find out if there's anything to worry about, so they can at least, take that off your plate.
Absolutely. And I think, it's really hard to trust your instincts when you've probably got family members around you saying, it's fine, Uncle Bruce was exactly the same. And, we understand the motivation for that. It's coming from a place of kindness and reassurance. But it doesn't serve parents well to have their instincts undermined.
Yes.
Because it's very rare that those instincts are wrong.
Yes.
But yeah, if you are worried and you think maybe I'm just nervous and I'm being an over anxious, particularly if it's your first child, far better to go and see someone and talk about it and be told it's fine, than lying awake worrying and having people constantly undermining your very strong sense of what's happening for your child.
Absolutely. And I think there's many supports in place where we can go as a parent to say like, oh, I'm worried about this.
Right.
And allied health professionals will reassure you like it's absolutely fine. Your child isn't walking at 15 months. That's fine. Don't worry about it. They've got a few months still to pick it up.
But they're talking and they're,
exactly
able to feed them. They're hitting other milestones. So
yes.
Yeah, so that's a good place to go in with our next question. So what are some of those early signs that families might be noticing already or would like to know more about? Yeah,
so there are quite several developmental areas that we'd probably be thinking about, and often the first one that we notice, it's kind of the easiest one to see, are the kids' motor skills. In small babies, are they rolling over, are they sitting up, are they standing, are they walking? Those are kind of easier signs to spot and to notice for yourself as a parent, but also for people around you. But we are also thinking about how they're using their hands and body to move and do things. In terms of their hands, do they use a pincer grasp? Do they use their thumb and their index finger to pick up toys or food? And other skills we'll be thinking about is maybe jumping, standing on one leg, their balance skills, when they're scooting or learning to ride a bike. Or maybe are the kids accident prone? Do they trip over items on the floor? Can they protect themselves when they are falling? So there's a lot of things that we'll be looking at or thinking about. And I guess it's generally you'd become, of course you are looking at other kids that are a similar age. And you do want to think oh, is my child kind of roughly doing what other kids are doing without having the comparison race on. But it's really... just really noticing their motor skills. And if you think and I guess that's what kind of our purple book is for as well, to write down those developmental milestones, because I cannot remember when my child actually sat up for the first time or smiled for the first time. So it's good to write it down.
Yeah. And, take recordings of your child if they're doing something and you want to, not sure how to put it into words when you're going to visit your clinician, take a little video of how they're moving and what their grip looks like and those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another area, of course, that's really important about kind of development is looking at or thinking about their child's social communication or language skills. So moms and dads are probably the first ones to engage in a conversation with their babies. And by conversation, we mean, are they babbling? Are they playing peekaboo? Are they sharing smiles with each other? And this kind of difference, although it may not be very obvious to others, can be one of the first things that parents pick up. So if their child is less bubbling less or sharing less smiles or kind of not really engaging the back and forth and conversations, that's probably something that the moms and dads will notice first before other people around them. And then as the babies get older, from around 6 months of age, we would like a baby to kind of copy movements, copy facial expressions like smiles, and thinking about do the babies respond to their names. Then again, for a 1-year-old, we'd be expecting a child to make noise to get our attention, whether we like it or not, but it's very normal. Are they copying our sounds? Are they copying our gestures? Are they following basic instructions? And the rough mark for language is at 1 year of age, we would probably want a baby to use their first words. They don't have to be pronounced correctly, but just something simple like papa, mama, nana, choo-choo, simple words. And again, kids get older, so from kind of 2 years of age, then we'd be expecting a child to put 2 words together roughly. So that's kind of like a good milestone to remember. And we are also thinking about their play skills, their social interactions. Does my child copy other people? Do they show an interest in other people? Do they play alongside other children? And we are still obviously just looking for the parallel play. Do they play next to other children? Do they engage in joint attention? And do they share with someone else what they are looking at by, for example, pointing at something exciting that they've seen? But I also want to be very clear that we don't expect a 2-year-old to take turns or share their toys willingly with other people. So they're absolutely allowed to just say, mine, and grab it back. So I guess overall, thinking about social communication, it's just think about how your child interacts with us, other children, other adults. Do they enjoy engaging with others? Do they copy and imitate what others are doing or saying? And do they get our attention when they need help?
And I suppose then, so parents might be noticing some of those things. So when is the time for them to seek support? You know, what's the sort of pathway for them if they are noticing?
I think, first kind of like noticing what's happening in the development and then thinking about, okay, is this just something I'm noticing or is it something that I'm really concerned about? So it's, I think, when those concerns get bigger, when your worries get bigger, if you're noticing differences a lot of the time, it's probably time to write it down, take little notes, observe those behaviors, and whatever works for you, kind of like write it down on a piece of paper, put it in your phone, take videos like we already said, or little recordings of what they're doing. So just notice it and be aware is the first point.
The more you notice, the more you notice.
Yeah. And I think just kind of like other areas to be aware of as well is just thinking about the children's like emotional regulation. Are they happy children? Do they connect with us? Are we able as an adult to regulate our children? Because we can't expect small children to regulate themselves. They need a caregiver to do that. Thinking about their mental health well-being. Are they happy children? Are they very anxious children? Thinking about, do they have any specific special interests, or are there certain sensory preferences or sensory aversions? So there's a lot of information we'll be, as professionals, asking parents about. So the more you notice, that can be really helpful. And it's kind of like, getting educated on developmental milestones by like really trusted sites. So I always recommend to parents or friends as well, like the Raising Children website. And I know the Department of Health also has like really nice short documents on what to expect at certain ages. And I know even as a mom, I always found these really helpful to look at and just kind of like be reassured that my child is developing the way they should be.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Marie. I think that's going to be really useful information for a lot of families navigating their worries and what they're seeing in their child that they feel is developing differently. I hope families also, out of that information, feel really confident that they can trust their instincts, that no observation is wrong if it's causing them a worry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just can't stress enough that documenting. Because when you're in front of somebody, if you're seeking information, diagnosis, support, you're on a limited time frame, and you've probably got your child there, and you're wrangling and managing. So to have it really clearly documented makes life much, much, much easier.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's also good to know, like, as a clinician, that you know, like, okay, the parent really got to ask all their questions, because we do encourage parents to come prepared, bring all their questions with us so that they can leave an appointment being reassured. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think you're going to record those things that do really stand out, that probably are the things the clinician is going to be most interested in, like, eating, that's interesting, or the sensory stuff, that's interesting. Yeah. So we had, as I said before, that amazing Rachel Callender here, and she made a comment that always sticks with me, and that is confusion wastes time. Particularly in a clinical setting. So being able to come with very, very clear points of concern get to the point, and then you've got more time to get your issues addressed or concerns addressed.
Yeah, that's very helpful advice, actually.
Oh, so good. It's that one really seared into my mind.
And I think for families to be confident to say, I just need some time to write this down, so that they've got the answers as well, so they can go back to that information. I think sometimes, especially if it's the first time you're having that, being able to express those things and have a conversation with someone who can help, you do not always hear everything.
Absolutely.
Or be able to process it, not necessarily hear, but process what you've been told. So take the time, make notes from what the clinician is saying to you, so that you can go home and maybe have a chat about it with family, and just process that information for yourself as well.
Also, because the chances are that clinician is using clinical terms that you're not familiar with. So we've talked about this too, where you say, hang on, time out, explain to me what that means. What does dysregulation mean? Or what,
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're learning a new language.
And I think it's also, don't be afraid to bring a support person. Like, you don't have to go to these appointments on your own. Yeah. Bring your partner, mom, dad, a friend, it doesn't matter. Like, we always welcome the family in. Whoever is your support person, bring them along.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So from here, for parents and carers who still may be concerned about their child's development, what are the next steps?
So maybe concerned isn't the right thing to feel, but being curious can be really helpful. So this will help you to work out if there are differences that lead to needing support, or whether they are just differences that make your child who they are. This time can be very stressful and overwhelming, and it's important to remember that parents don't need to hold on to their concerns or the worries, and that there are a lot of people out there who can help and give support. There is, of course, as a first point of call, you might just take your baby to the kind of like your regular checkup appointments when you're going to see your child health nurse, your GP. They are there for you. And even if you're going for another, like a regular checkup or like a vaccination, use those times to ask your questions, because again, they are there to help. Then there are many organizations out there like Nagala, who have a lot of knowledge and information. So you can always phone them up. There is places like Kiind as well that you can contact. And if your child attends daycare, it can also be really helpful to just chat to the educators, because they work with hundreds of children. So even though they're not a health professional, they know how kids develop, and they're a really good person to ask as well. Then more specifically, like, there are a lot of service providers who offer drop-in sessions as well, like if you have questions around your child's development. For example, at CliniKids, we offer consultation meetings where we listen to parents about their concerns to identify the next steps. And please be assured that we don't suggest a further assessment or therapy if we don't think it's needed. So we just want to offer support to parents who may be wondering, should I be concerned? Should I see a pediatrician? Should I start therapy? So it's just really like a first point of call to say, like, give you like a direction to go with. At the same time, we also know that research has shown us how important early supports are, and how important it is that parents build their skills and their capacity as a parent. And I think the most important thing for parents to know here is that you don't need a referral to start therapy. And also, if you really have like big concerns and you're thinking, like, is my child eligible for NDIS supports, you don't need a diagnosis for children under 6 years of age to start getting NDIS funding. So I think if parents are really concerned, they can contact any service provider and start therapy. They can start OT, speech, physio, clinical psychology, and the clinician will tell you if therapy is not required. We will not continue with therapy if we think your child is meeting the milestones. We might say, like, maybe if you're still concerned, come back in 3 months' time and we'll do another check-in, but we won't do therapy just for the sake of it. But, like, of course, doing therapies privately can be quite costly for families. Yeah. So maybe just to mention as well, there are Medicare rebates available, like the Chronic Disease Management Plan, which can be used for speech, OT, physio sessions, and I think other allied health as well. So it's only a rebate for up to 5 sessions per year, but at least it's something. And then there's also the mental health care plan for psychology or specialized OTs as well, which is like up to 10 sessions a year. So at least that's a bit of financial support for families, and it might help to kind of like get the ball rolling if they just want to get like some ideas.
Absolutely. And I think it's great for families to know that there are opportunities because we kind of do worry quite a lot about families who can't afford these things. So that's adding to the worry of deciding, what they need to do. And it's like, gosh, where am I going to get the money from to do this? So it's really important that families know that there are opportunities out there for rebated services and assistance.
Yeah, and I think after you've seen your GP or your child health nurse and they have suggested to look for further supports, remember again, you don't need a referral, so you can just call therapy providers and start supports. But at the same time, it's also just really important to still focus on your child or your children and just continue in play and quality time. Yeah. So don't focus too much on all the things that you might think you should be doing to get your child support. It's just enjoy the little person that they are, just enjoy having them around and just really focus on the connection you have with your child and with everyone in the family. Yeah,
I say this to parents quite a lot. Your child only gets one childhood. Yeah. So let's make it as good as it can be, regardless of what else is going on. And I think it was Maria Montessori who said play is the work for children.
Yes, exactly.
So, we might see play as frivolous, but it is absolutely essential to development. And in that process, there's eye contact and there's communication and there's motor skills and there's a lot going on that is a form of organic therapy. So
exactly. It's just play is how children learn. It is their form of work. It's their occupation. Yeah. So that's why everything we do in therapy is through play. Yeah. And it's I think there's a lot of parents out there who think I need to do this type of play or I really need to challenge my child. But no, just sit back and just watch what they are interested in. And you can copy what your child is doing because they absolutely love when you join in at their level. And then you can give them little ideas to build on that. But just kind of get on the floor with them, be eye to eye with them, if that's not too much pressure for them, and just play what they are playing, just copy what they are doing, and you will have the most beautiful connections.
It's about connection, right? Yeah. Developing connection,
So I think the discussion around play is really great because I think families will feel really confident that they're actually, taking steps forward. We know that wait times in WA are really long at the moment for some services. Yeah.
Developmental paediatricians particularly, which is where you want to be looking to access. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, even finding a developmental paed and being on a wait list for them.
Particularly if you're in regional areas, right, it gets even trickier.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So I think, play is a great way of supporting your child while you're waiting.
Absolutely. And I think with the wait time is particularly we always or often recommend to families the website Perth Kids Hub because they do the hard work for you and actually check wait lists for different service providers and pediatricians. Yeah. So you can see who is currently adding new clients to the waiting list, where can you contact who maybe doesn't have a waiting list at the moment. So Perth Kids Hub is a very helpful resource for families in Perth. But around the play, maybe just to mention that play groups can be a really good support as well. There are inclusive play groups in WA, and I think these can be a really good support, maybe more so for the parents than the children, because you're meeting other parents who are going through a similar time to you, maybe have similar struggles or maybe similar concerns. And it's just really nice to find like-minded parents and peers that you can chat to and ask questions that maybe you don't feel comfortable asking your other friends from your parent group.
Absolutely. I was talking to a mum the other day and she, we were talking about supports and she felt like she's got lovely family and friends, but she didn't feel confident talking to them because they just didn't understand. She didn't want a burden. Yes. But finding a tribe can be really helpful, in those Playgroup Connect Plus are those opportunities. Yeah. And we certainly do have that information on our website. So we have a blog post on inclusive playgroups in WA. So it's a great place for families to find that information as well. I think schools are another great opportunity for families to gather information and get support. So for parents whose child is about to start school or has recently started, how important is it to inform their teachers about their concerns?
very important, I would say, because teachers are then better able to support your child. And especially in the younger years, like kinder pre-primary, they have more EA support in the classroom anyways. So if your teacher knows that you may have some concerns around your child developing differently, they can make sure that the EA is close to your child to support them through transitions or with specific tasks that needs to be done in the classroom. So it's very helpful. So talking to your teacher and the whole school is really important, because there is other supports in place in schools that can be helpful for your family. So they might have, or they will definitely have, a school psychologist, but also depending on if your child is going to a private school or a public school, there is pastoral care or well-being officers who can provide additional supports as well.
One of the bits of feedback we get fairly regularly from families we speak with is that their child is having some struggles in the early years of school, but they're not getting the EA support that is required because they're pre-diagnosis.
Yes.
So going back to your point about that really important relationship with the teacher right from the get-go, sharing, these are some of my observations. I might not be concerned, but I'm curious. I'd be interested for you to, see if you're observing what I'm observing. Note, bring it back to me, and then, I can feed this information further if need be. And this is the perfect segue, Marie, for our first ever podcast that we had some time ago now. That is all about preparing for the start of the school year. So we've actually touched on quite a bit of this, listeners. So, yeah.
And I think it's nice to think about how teachers and EAs and schools can support you with gathering information as well. They might be asked to do an assessment if you are going, through those next steps. And, there's other clinical opportunities for teachers to be involved, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I find it really helpful when parents show me or forward me emails that they have received from their teacher around things that the teacher has noticed in the classroom. It's really helpful for me to see how the child is managing, or how the child is how the child is getting on at school.
Reacting to the environment.
And we know some children, and the parent isn't there, so the parent can't share with us how the child is going at school. They see maybe the meltdowns after school. And I think
talked about that too.
Yeah. And we know that children, and particularly girls, are very good at masking. So the teachers or EAs may not be able to pick up on things. So it's the subtle things in between, but definitely having the conversation with the teacher as well is really helpful. And definitely, as for kids on my caseload, we'll do regular school visits as well, just to observe and see how is the child settling into school. Do they get the one-on-one support that they might need in certain situations? So that can be really helpful as well. And we then try to be the fly on the wall that you want to have there most of the time. So yeah, just to remind people as well that our consultation meetings at CliniKids are open to professionals as well. So it's not only for parents and caregivers, so anyone can book a consultation meeting with us. And we are just really trying to be strengths-based, focused on the child, and the environment around the child and how we can best support them in their environments.
They are amazing insights. Sharon, do you have any additional advice around this?
I do. There's a lot actually going on in my head at the moment. I think this is very, very hard to do. But I think try not to project too far into the future. It's natural to worry about the future. It's probably the thing that keeps parents awake at night more than anything else. Try not to project too far. Try and stay focused on what's happening now, what needs to get done now. Bite-sized chunks would be one of those. There's a lot happening for families around this moment of concern, curiosity, pre-diagnosis, diagnosis, post-diagnosis. And it's a bit of a roller coaster emotionally. We recognise that, and that's why it's really important to go, what we were saying before, tapping into peer support, finding your tribe, and the disability community is full of amazing tribes. So you will be welcomed into a wonderful community where you will find wisdom and support. So you won't be alone. I think that's really, really important point. As we've touched on in previous podcasts, the importance of things like note keeping, learning how to communicate effectively with your allied health, medical professionals, teachers. That's part of the process. You'll learn that. You're learning a new language. You'll learn that as you go on. Again, just take a deep breath. That will evolve in time. Try to keep your anxieties in check around record keeping. Get a little filing cabinet. Have your folders for all your different professionals and that, because often children with disabilities will be engaging with multiple professionals. So you'll be getting multiple reports. And we won't even go into NDIS, right?
Yes.
We'll leave that for another conversation. And obviously, utilising support like Kiind, where we can point you in the direction, not just helping you navigate systems, but point you in the direction of accessing supports that are going to help you for the long haul. This is a marathon, not a sprint.
It is, absolutely. And I think it's so important that parents look after themselves. And if you have happy parents, you have happier children. And we know from the research, there's a lot of neurological connections between parents' regulation and the child's regulation.
Yeah.
So the happier you are, the better you are able to look after yourself, makes you be more resourceful and have more capacity to look after your children.
Absolutely.
So whatever it is, it's easy. I always know, it's really easy for us to say that in a conversation like this, and it's really difficult to do it on the ground. But still, think about what is quality time for you. Is it a cup of tea on your own? Is it a walk in the early morning or the evening? Is it going to the gym? And just really don't think, I'm being selfish. No, you are not. You are doing the most important thing for your family.
Absolutely.
Look after yourself first, and then you can look after your children.
Absolutely. And it's probably worth reminding listeners that the peer navigators at Kiind, we all have lived experience. We're in the trenches with you. We know.
Yes.
We know what it's like.
Would you like to connect with another parent who just gets it? We're taking a short break from our chat with Marie to let you know about our Parent Link program. Through Parent Link, we can introduce you to another parent who might be on a similar journey. That could be your child's age, their diagnosis, or they might just have similar circumstances like living regionally. Together you can share ideas, knowledge, and just connect with somebody else who gets it. If you'd like to know more about Parent Link program, please visit our website at kiind.com.au, complete an expression of interest form, and one of the team will be in contact when we find you a match. Now let's head back to the podcast. Well, thank you, ladies. We've outlined some really helpful tips. So far, we've covered early signs and what to do if you have concerns about your child's development. Now, let's talk about the next steps. So, Marie, if a parent has been informed that their child requires further support, what should they expect next?
So if your child is still young, like is preschool or lower primary school age, then you will probably consider some early supports or the early childhood approach. So in the past, we may have called this early intervention, but with our growing understanding of neuroaffirming practice, we prefer to call it supports rather than interventions. But you will still hear in the community, you might still hear early intervention. So the supports for younger and actually older children as well has probably changed quite a bit over the years. So we still offer direct work or direct sessions directly with the child and the parents present. So a lot of the therapy approaches that we can offer now are coaching approaches, and the benefit of that is that you don't have to go to a clinic to receive therapy. So a lot of these approaches can be done via telehealth, so you can stay at home, you can use an online link, or they can even be done over the phone.
That's really, really relevant to the families we speak to in regional and remote areas to be able to get that support without having to turn up.
Absolutely. And there are so many different approaches out there, and they're really powerful. And I also don't want regional families to think that they're getting like second best therapies.
Right, yes.
It's actually, there are really good therapies, and a lot of our families in Perth choose as well to use them as telehealth options because they don't have to drive, or they can maybe have an early lunch break at work and they can do those therapies while they're at work. So they are just really, really good and convenient options while also hitting the best evidence mark.
Brilliant.
So for children who are new to therapies, what are some ways for parents to ease them into new routines and transitions? And I think that's sort of a nice question to lead in after you're sharing about how sometimes families choose teletherapy because their little person might not be ready for a trip, what we could would consider a traditional therapy session.
Yeah. And I think, so in therapy, like most importantly is that therapy should be fun for the child. It should be fun and engaging, and anything we do in therapy should match the needs of the child for engagement. So we are following the best practice guidelines, and some of those principles include that we use a family-centered practice and a strengths-based approach. So that really means that parents and therapists work together. Parents need to feel safe and supported, and children need to have fun and allowed to be a child. So if that's not happening, then you might want to consider something else or just have a chat to your therapist about it, and that's in saying that, maybe not every therapy session will be as much fun as the other. Some, depending on what your goals are and what we are working on, they can be a little bit tricky at times, or also depends how the child slept and what happened in the morning. But overall, we will try and be led by the child. So whatever the child prefers, whatever the child preferences are, we will bring that into the therapy session. And even if that means that we'll just have a session around Thomas the Tank Engine or Bluey episodes, anything, mermaids, I don't know, it could be anything. We'll try and bring it in to make it fun and make sure your child wants to be there and can work on what's tricky for them, but while using their strengths and their interests. Like we said already with the coaching approaches. So there are coaching approaches that we can use with the parent. So one, for example, is the pediatric autism communication therapy, which is where the child and the parent play together, and then the therapist will look at the videos or be in the room, depending on whether they're doing a telehealth option or an in-clinic option, and just really focus on the engagement and the communication between the child and the parent at that time. But there are also coaching approaches for children. So children that are very chatty, like maybe children that are 7, 8 years of age and older. There's a beautiful intervention called the Cognitive Orientation to Daily Occupational Performance, called COOP, where children get to set their own goals, and they get to really be the lead in the therapy, decide on obviously like what they want to work on, but also what they want to work on next. They get to develop their own plans for therapy, and it's really difficult for me at times to kind of like sit back and not tell the child what to do, because we actually now know that coaching is a much better approach. So when the child tells us, no, I want to do this a different way, okay, great, let's give it a go. Let's see how you go with that. And as a result, we get to work on goals like maybe skateboarding, basketball, running, skipping, and these are goals that are often not prioritized by parents when they come to an OT. But for children, these are really important things. And it's just kind of like seeing their smiles and their proud facial expressions when they achieve the goal, which is just incredible. And I think other programs can be group programs that focus on emotional regulation and social interactions. There's one called the Secret Agent Society, which is designed like a computer game. So the children are playing a computer game, but it's actually designed to support them with their emotional regulation and social interaction. So again, that's very, very powerful as well. But to summarize all of that, I think it's important. Any therapy should be individualized to the child. It should be fun. It should be led by the child. But we are thinking about the whole family and also the siblings in the family, because sometimes the typically developing siblings may feel left out. They may feel some kind of jealousy. Why is my brother or sister always going to all these appointments? So there are beautiful supports for siblings as well, like a program that we offer is the CliniKids program for typically developing brothers and sisters of autistic children, where they get to form a support group with each other and get to know other children who have different struggles at home maybe at time. And again, these kids can't share that with their friends at school. So it's really powerful for these kids to come together and form friendships and share things about their home life.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it?
I've had good feedback from families about their children who've been through that. We talk about siblings a lot.
Lovely.
Yeah, it's a unique and often lonely journey for siblings.
Yes. And even though it's the siblings that will stay together for such a long time.
Right. Yeah.
So they will be together for a long time. So as parents, like, we may be gone, but the siblings are still there looking after each other. So it's really important that they have a good bond and connection.
Absolutely.
So what are the options available if a child can't access these early support services? You know, whether it's they're on a wait list or they live regionally and have limited supports. What are the other things that families can engage with?
Yeah, so like we said already, for regional families, remember the online supports that are out there. And even if you have a dodgy internet connection, which hopefully you don't have anymore, but a lot of it can be done over the phone as well. And these are best practice therapies with really positive outcomes. So they are, the real game changer for regional families. Waiting lists are the reality, unfortunately, a lot of the times, but they also come and go. So don't be completely put off by them. Join several wait lists. Because you never know when a service provider is employing a whole lot of new therapists. So just be on several waiting lists and keep your options open. But while you are waiting, I think it's really important to come back to an earlier point that we already spoke about, is around building the connections with your child and having fun, and just really enjoy them as a special person that they are. Enjoy the playtime with them and just spend quality and meaningful time together. And it doesn't have to be a long stretch of time, because you'll have other siblings, or you have work to do. Life is very busy. But when you do get on the floor to play with them, even if it's just a few minutes a day, make it really meaningful.
Yeah.
Lovely. So we hope everyone listening today has found this episode helpful, and that you're feeling more confident to navigate what you do if you've noticed your child is developing differently. Marie, in every episode, we leave our listeners with one last pearl of wisdom. What is the main thing that you would like them to take away from this episode?
That's a big question. I think for me, it's going back to trust your instincts.
Yeah.
You know your child best. So stay curious, embrace your child's differences, because they are amazing. But remember that supports are available, and seek professional advice early on when your curiosity turns into concerns.
Wonderful. And Sharon, have you got a pearl of wisdom for us today?
Yeah, I think following on from that point, I really want to acknowledge that there is an enormous amount of pressure on parents to get an early diagnosis and early supports/intervention. That's what the early space call it, the early therapy space. So we're aware of the fact that the pressure is there, but access to that diagnosis and support can take some time. It's a very uncomfortable space, a limbo space for families to be in. And a lot of parents we talk to who get a diagnosis 8, 9, 10 years of age have guilt around that, and this idea of the missed opportunity. And I suppose my takeaway message would be it's never too late. There's always an opportunity to get those supports in place. The brain is changing and evolving and growing, and any time is better than no time.
Absolutely, and that's exactly true. Like we know the brain is changing all the time. It's never too late to learn. So it's never too late, and please don't feel guilty ever. There are still so many opportunities out there.
Wonderful. That brings us to the end of the episode. Marie, thank you so much for being part of this episode with us.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful to sit beside you and listen to your expert advice and share this information with families. For links and resources mentioned in today's episode, check out the show notes. Stay tuned for our next episode. If you don't want to miss it, please make sure you follow on our socials. If you have a friend or know someone who could benefit from the information we've discussed today, why not share this podcast with them? The Kiind team is here for you. If you would like one-on-one support to help you navigate any issues with your family, you can book a free pathway planning session with us. The link will also be in the show notes. If you have any questions or ideas for future episodes, please email us at hello@kiind.com.au. Thank you for joining the conversation with us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thanks, Marie.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marie. That was amazing.